in the sports world, obviously in our social climate as well. So I want to get your opinion on all of it because I know you always keep it real. And that's one of the things people love about you. It's one of the things I really like about you.
I appreciate that.
So let's start with the NFL because that is what's going on right now. Also basketball, but focusing on football. They came out with their 2 slogans that they're going to use during the season, which is "It takes all of us" and "End racism." There was a lot of debate when that came out if it's their way of kind of pleasing their demographic and also trying to please the Black community. What is your stance on the kind of generic slogans versus the NBA who did Black Lives Matter? Because that is what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show you just how conservative by nature the NFL is. I mean, I don't care, frankly, that Roger Goodell says Black Lives Matter in the off season or says Black Lives Matter once he's basically pressured to do so, by his players. I don't really have a whole lot of, frankly, respect for people who proclaim that Black Lives Matter, now that it's convenient, now that it's more or less been co-opted, now that it's branded at this point. Even the NBA, I mean, like, I appreciate it, but I'm kind of like, I thought it had more power when it was more uncomfortable for people, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like a protest, and it's a verbal protest. A protest is not meant to be polite. It's not meant to be convenient. It's not meant to be comfortable. It's certainly not meant to be permissible. So once any league, whether it's the NBA or we're talking about the NFL specifically, gives you permission to do something, I mean, like, I know you're a Cowboys fan and you had no choice in the matter, but it's like Jerry Jones saying, okay, we can do this. We gonna all lock arm in arm, and I'm gonna take a knee and I'm gonna smile for the camera. It loses a lot of its power when you do stuff like that. So for the NFL to not even, apply Black Lives Matter, to the end zones, it's really not, it's not that hard now to say Black Lives Matter. It shouldn't be that hard. I mean, because so many corporations went into CYA mode when they knew that the downside of not agreeing with the controversial phrase Black Lives Matter, was less, than fighting against this momentum. So, I just felt like the NFL has always been,
Yeah.
It's just they never really been about it. They always been fake. I mean, it's obvious, and it's like real hard to take you seriously and assign credibility to your to your commitment to this movement when the guy that started the whole thing still chilling at home, and his partner in crime, although it wasn't a crime, obviously, they're both sitting at home. So how legit can you be when it comes to believing that Black Lives Matter if the guy that tried to tell you that Black Lives Matter 4 years ago is still unemployed? So they just have zero credibility. And then to do it with something, as benign and milquetoast as "it takes all of us," it's like, no shit.
That's a really good point, because I spoke to Brandon Marshall, Denver Broncos Brandon Marshall, and I asked him, one of the questions I really wanted to know was, because I feel like if the roles were reversed, I'd be a little upset. I asked him, do you feel a type of way about the fact that all these players are kind of banding together now when it's more comfortable, and you guys didn't get that level of support? And when I say you guys, I mean Kaepernick, Eric Reed, and Brandon Marshall. And he says, in a way, I do feel kind of a way about it, because where was that support when it actually meant something, where the repercussions were a lot stronger, where I lost endorsements, where I got, derogatory letters, where people burned my jerseys? The same thing with Cap. So a lot of the players do feel a type of way, and Kaepernick has been very vocal about the fact that he's not really buying it. I know that, the NFL, Madden came out and they put him in the video game, and a lot of people had an issue with that. Now we're looking at the fact that Blake Bortles is named the starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos, and everyone's saying, if the NFL really is as progressive as they're saying they're trying to be, why does Kaepernick not have a job? What are your thoughts on that?
Listen, the moment Donald Trump called him by name, I knew his career was over. And I think they're going to always hold him up as the example of, there is a line that you will not cross, and you will not thumb your nose at the NFL and live to tell about it. And that's why a lot of the demonstrations right now, I don't even call them protests because I don't want to water down the meaning of a protest by calling them actual protests. That's why a lot of them feel performative. And let me be clear on something when it comes to the players who are protesting or who are demonstrating, right now. This isn't black folks' problem to solve. It is certainly not black athletes' problem to solve. Like, they have been thrust into a position, and look, until much is given, much is required. Yeah. And they've been thrust into a position to use their platforms to try to help end systemic racism when they are not the perpetrators of systemic racism. You know, it's not their mess to clean up. And it's one of the big issues I have with this so-called conversation. And as I said before, my humanity, your humanity, actually is not a subject of conversation. Because a conversation implies there's two sides and two perspectives. Yeah. Like, it's open and shut, full stop, you know? And so, but the issue that I have with this dialogue, for lack of a better phrase, is, you know, I lost my train of thought. It
feels just forced. It doesn't feel authentic. And I think that's the thing a lot of people are kind of rubbed the wrong way about, is that where was this energy last year or the year before that?
That's right. That's what we're talking about. It's like, you know, it's not our problem to solve, but yet this is what I was getting at. So much of the energy is pointed toward, hey, black people, do better. Get into your communities. Uplift yourselves. Educate yourselves. I'm throwing out all of the racist tropes that are thrown. Educate yourselves. Take care of your children. Stop killing one another. You know, stop. Do better in so-called black on black crime, and then maybe just maybe, we'll respect you enough to stop killing you. Maybe just maybe we'll respect you enough to stop killing you. It's never about ending systemic racism. It's always put back on black people, and in the context of this conversation I'm having with you, Ashley, it's always put back on athletes to do community service work. You know, and look, no disrespect to the good law enforcement officers out there, but I see somebody like, you know, like Marquise Pouncey with the Steelers, you know, and really the Steelers organization right now, you know, they commit to recognizing a victim of police brutality. And now you have Alejandro Villanueva deciding he's going to recognize a fallen soldier, a black soldier who should be awarded the Medal of Honor. You have the aforementioned Marquise Pouncey, you know, deciding, oh, you know, I'm gonna shout out police officers. You know, I'm gonna go Blue Lives Matter on the issue. It's like they keep shifting the focus of the conversation, and it always just comes back to either black people having to establish mentorship programs or community programs as if somehow our level of we can achieve our way out of systemic racism, you know, or, hey, let's support police officers. Let's do ride-alongs. Let's see how tough their job is. I'm not saying it's not, but it never comes, the conversation always goes around in circles and never comes back to the real issue. Yeah. And so what bothers me about, you know, the people who are in it now, that is popular, that is convenient, the people who are trying to get in on this conversation, I just have to question their sincerity. Mm-hmm. You know, I have to question if you're really in it, or if you're in it because you get cool points for being in it. It's performative at times. It's a roll call. It just feels like, you know, nobody's willing to sacrifice, because if they were, I mean, Black Lives Matter, you know, rest in peace, but they mattered before George Floyd got his neck kneeled on. They mattered before Jacob Blake got shot in the back. And again, and I've said this before, actually, we're only talking about life. Like, the issue that we've crystallized is really the extreme manifestation of systemic racism. Most of the conversation is about the death and the abuse of black and brown bodies at the hands of the police, state-sponsored violence against black and brown people. That is such an extreme manifestation of racism. That's just life and death. We ain't even talking about liberty and the pursuit of happiness, because the same NFL that's saying end racism in its end zone has racist practices when it comes to doling out concussion settlements. A racist standard that shows that you have to have a lower threshold of cognitive decline in order to qualify for their concussion settlements, but in racism. So It's all fraudulent.
And I think a lot, going back to that performative word, you know, there were a lot of athletes that came forward that said in the beginning of the season they were going to kneel and they didn't care about the backlash. The first person that comes to mind for me is Baker Mayfield. He went out and verbally said multiple times during the offseason, I don't care, you know, how people feel about it. I don't care how the Cleveland fan base feels about it. I'm going to kneel. And then right before the first game of the season, put out that statement and saying it's not about kneeling. I'm not going to kneel. Now, a lot of people feel like the kneeling aspect of it has kind of lost its meaning because now it is okay to do it. But how do you feel about somebody saying they were going to do one thing, and even when it's okay to do it, and I put that in air quotes because at the end of the day, it is a free country. You should be able to do whatever you want, then changing their mind. What does that mean to you?
That actually, it doesn't bother me. I'd rather him come clean and just say I changed my mind than to fake it. To be honest with you, that didn't bother me as much because they got a lot of cats that's faking it, that's kneeling, that don't really know why they're kneeling. If we go all the way back, to the beginning of this thing, when Colin Kaepernick, and a lot of people forget Marshawn Lynch was sitting during the national anthem. Colin Kaepernick did not wake up one morning and say, "Oh, you know what? I'm gonna start a mass movement. I'm going to end up being a martyr. I am going to put my career on the line and start a protest that's going to be in a posture that's going to become synonymous with racial justice during this zeitgeist."
No, I mean, nobody could ever predict something like that.
But my point is that, my point is that he did something that was in here. Much in the same way that Jackie Robinson said in his biography, I can no longer stand and salute that flag. That flag means different things to different people, or for people that look like me and you, actually doesn't mean shit in terms of what it's supposed to represent. In terms of what it's supposed to represent, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, freedom, and justice for all, it doesn't hold that kind of meaning for us. And so if it doesn't hold that kind of meaning for you, and you don't feel comfortable standing and saluting that flag, the symbol of a country that hasn't loved you back, then that's your personal decision. No different than if I gather and I say, hey, bow your heads in prayer, and you don't believe in the same God that I believe in, or you don't believe in God at all, and you choose not to bow your head. That's the purpose of this country. Is like you have a freedom. It's about being patriotic, not nationalistic. And so for me, Colin Kaepernick, this was a personal choice for him, that he felt like, I'm watching my brothers and sisters die in the street at the hands of police. I can't, in good conscience, stand and salute that flag and sing the national anthem. I would like for that to be everybody's position who chooses to kneel. Don't kneel because it's a trend. Don't kneel because it's a fad. Don't kneel because you feel pressured to do it. Don't kneel because everybody else does. Oh, well, if I don't kneel, then I look like I'm not down for it. Because there are people who stand for the national anthem who are more allies than some of the people who kneel. Yeah. Like I've never judged patriotism by its posture. Because just as there are plenty of people who are draped in the American flag, standing with their hands on their heart or what have you, who are the worst of us, who are the farthest things from patriots. So, yeah, I just, the kneeling, I still think kneeling is powerful if it has a purpose and if it's rooted in principle, not in performative action.
I like what you said, that the kneeling doesn't dictate whether or not you're an ally, because I think especially in the NBA, when the bubble first started and we started seeing these acts of protest, if you will, against racial and social injustice, one of the instances that come to mind is Myers Leonard of the Miami Heat. He stood while wearing a Black Lives Matter t-shirt. When they asked him post-game, why did he do that? He said, look, the anthem means something to me. I have family members who served overseas. My brother, I believe he's in the Marines or was in the Marines, but doesn't mean that I am for what's going on in this country. I believe that I can do both. And I think that's a good point, because I am a firm believer that somebody standing for the national anthem does not make them a bad person. Right. It just means that it means something to them. But I love that you said that, because I think that's gotten lost in translation. And I think people have forgotten, at the root of it, the protest is not about the anthem. It is not about the military. It is about the words of that anthem and what it claims to represent and what it count basically what it claims to represent and what it's not representing in this country. So I'm glad that you said that. Moving on to the injuries, I do want to ask you though about the injuries around the league. I mean, it's only week 2 and we've seen some major stars go down. Naming some of them, we have Christian McCaffrey, we have Nick Bosa ACL, Saquon Barkley ACL.
You play fantasy football? I was talking about if I could trivialize these for a second. Do you play fantasy football?
I do, but none of those guys are on my squad. So
okay. I retired, but I know a lot of fantasy owners are disappointed.
I'm okay right now.
But I know we're talking about reality, and you know, shout out to those guys for quick recoveries, especially Saquon and Nick Bosa.
No, definitely. An ACL injury is no joke. But I want to ask you, there's an argument, a debate rather. Do you think that these injuries are coming? Obviously not ACL. Those are freak accidents. It could happen, non-contact injuries, and most of the time it does. But the ankle sprains that we're seeing, the knee issues, the hamstrings, is it a result of lack of preseason and traditional off-season training?
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for that. I believe the numbers backed it up. What was it, 11, when there was a lockout? There were a lot of soft tissue injuries coming off the lockout. I think there's something to be said for that. Although, you know, some of these injuries, listen, the Niners blame the turf. You know, some of these injuries just might come down to just bad luck because, look, training camp, we see people go down all the time in training camp.
Yeah.
And even though a guy like Saquon Barkley did not have a traditional offseason, you know, it wasn't like he was just sprinting in open field and you know, grabbed the back of his hamstring. I mean, it was a freak accident. ACL injuries happen. And I think we know he takes really, really good care of himself.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
Yeah. So, I think there's something to be said for it. But on the flip side, it's like these guys take enough punishment in the regular season. No preseason, you know, I thought was a blessing in disguise, even though it was obviously motivated by the pandemic. Blessing in disguise. So, yeah, I think we'd be seeing guys go down early. It happens every year. But the number of them that we saw on Sunday, it's hard not to draw some kind of connection to it.
Yeah.
I love to see the data across the board as it relates to, you know, how many people are struggling with those soft tissue injuries that I just talked about.
I want to ask you, with the injuries and then the variations of the stadiums that are allowing fans, not allowing fans, allowing some fans, do you think the NFL rushed the season to start on time without really working the logistics? Because I've spoken to a lot of players who feel a type of way about the fact that they go to some stadiums and there are some fans, which they say still make a difference, and then they're going to, say, Allegiant Stadium, like the Raiders yesterday, and it's dead silence and they're using crowd noise, which is not the same thing. Do you think the NFL really didn't work out the logistics of this before they decided to start the season on time?
I guess I just feel like it was the least of their concerns. You know, I think all they cared about was, hey, can we put a testing program in place to the players' satisfaction, to the union satisfaction, to get these games started on time? You know what I mean? I don't know that I'm pretty sure they weren't concerned about some teams having a home field advantage, some teams having, you know, fans early, late, not at all, different numbers of fans. That was just going to have to be the byproduct of the offset of starting right now. I mean, God bless these people that's out here going to these games, man. I feel like I'm the last person quarantining. I feel like I'm the only person wearing a mask and the only person social distancing. I am not bullshitting when it comes to this virus. Like, I'm sorry, ain't no game. I'm not going to nobody's football game.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't care if we are socially distant. I'm more than comfortable being at home. Not to mention, I probably will social distance for the rest of my life if it prevents me from having to take that damn test. Are they still sticking that thing up your nose?
I've taken the test, and it's not as bad as I anticipated, but it's still the most uncomfortable thing I've ever experienced.
That's all I need to hear.
Like it touched my brain.
I need to hear. No, thank you. I'm good. So I'll be right here. I will be right here.
Yeah.
Like, I am not going anywhere until it's all clear. Until it's all safe. I am hunkered down. Sorry, I'll be the last person. I'm good with that.
I spoke to Taylor. Shout out to Taylor in the chat. And when she was in the bubble, she said she was getting tested like every day. She was used to the swab up her nose at one point. She was like, I don't even feel it anymore. But yeah, it's a really uncomfortable, suck feeling. And I don't wish that on anyone. It's not a good time.
Hey, man, I'll see y'all in 2021. Whenever 2023, I'm good. You asked me earlier how quarantine was going. I'm like, it's kind of feeling normal. Like, there are days at a time when I don't leave my house.
Yeah.
So a football game? Nah.
And it's interesting too, because not to put my Dallas Cowboys on blast, but I know that
how many they had out there?
I know that they're trying to like orchestrate and mandate the masks, but I mean, there were times during that game against Atlanta on Sunday, and they panned to the audience, and there were people sitting on top of each other, no mask on, screaming at the top of their lungs. And I'm just like, look, there's no way in a stadium, let's say 25% is still what, 15, 20,000 people, that you can mandate and watch every single one of them. It's just not possible. On top of that, players are saying, listen, I'm not having, Zeke came out and said, yeah, my mom's not coming to any of the games this year. So if the players are not willing to risk their own families, that's kind of like a red flag for the fans. Like, maybe I should sit this one out.
Yeah,
like,
no, I'm convinced that we just don't want to get rid of this. America just wants this virus apparently, because it's like there are too many people who just are so reckless with this shit. You know what I mean? So I'm telling you, I think I have come into human contact with people outside my family. I can count on one hand how many times, and it's like it's got to legit be somebody like I know they clean. Like I know they clean. Like I gotta like who you been with? Where y'all been? Like I got people I ain't seen.
Let me see your test results.
I ain't seen nobody. Seen them. I ain't seen them in forever. You know, so.
I want to get your predictions for the NFL season, hoping that we get a full season. Obviously, we have no idea what this virus can do come the next few months. But if we get a full season, one, I want your MVP prediction right now. I know what mine is. I know it's too early. It's only week 2. But who do you think is getting it this year?
I think I know who yours is.
You don't know who. It's not. It's not. It's not. Everyone thinks I'm going to. It's not. I'm not going to say that. But you.
It's not Dak. It's not Dak. Dak balled out last week. It's not Dak.
Listen, he dropped over 500 yards against that. Oh no, almost 500 yards in that Atlanta game. But my pick is actually Russell Wilson. I think he's going to take it this year.
I think Russell Wilson. First of all, he's playing incredible. Was it 9 touchdowns, 11 incompletions? I think the shout out to LeBron James. The narrative is already working in Russell Wilson's favor. I mean, because it's like it's gonna be that Denzel Washington. See, you might be too young for this. The Denzel Washington training day moment.
I know.
You know, when Denzel got training day, it was great. Was not his best performance.
Was not absolutely.
But he was great, and they gave him that Academy Award, lifetime achievement. This is gonna be Russ's lifetime achievement MVP for all those years that he did not get an MVP vote, which is crazy to think about. I mean, we might be watching one of the best quarterbacks of all time right now. When you look at the numbers, I mean, we all know how, and I think his career, okay, I'm going to use the word again, find me for using it twice in less than a minute, but the narrative around his career has kind of been derailed in many respects by, you know, the second Super Bowl that they should have had. And, the conversations around his blackness or lack thereof toward the end of the Beast Mode Legion of Boom era, and now of course not to mention how much on the field, how much better could he have been with better play call. Now they finally letting Russ cook. But all that said, the numbers that he's put up is just ridiculous to think about. And I mean, he's I think he's the best quarterback right now. I think he will be the MVP if he just plays at his usual standard. Yeah, I think it's his time. It definitely feels like his time. What's your other prediction?
Plus, he's married to Sierra. Absolutely, shout out to Sierra.
Yeah, man. I mean, you know, his son is his newest child. His son name is Win, right? Appropriately named. Like he went in on every level. Every level.
I love that name. Everyone thought I was crazy, but Win Wilson is a dope name. Like
my name is Michael Smith Ashley Nicole Moss. My name is Michael Smith. So anybody who actually has a name that's not the most common name in the world, I respect it. So any originality, I appreciate it. My dad wanted me named after him, and here I am. So
who is your Super Bowl prediction? Do you think the Chiefs can make it back?
I do, man. God, Patrick Mahomes don't care. He legit does not care what the deficit is. You know, he plays football almost like it's a basketball game. Like you watch about, like everybody makes a run. The Chiefs always making a run. It don't matter what the score is, they're making a run. I think Monday night is an AFC championship preview. And it really is going to come down to who's at home between Baltimore and Kansas City. And that out of those two teams, one of those two teams I think is the favorite to win the Super Bowl. So I will reserve my Super Bowl pick, my official pick, for after Monday night. But if I had to pick a team right now, it's hard to bet against the champs. I go Kansas City.
So who's going to face them? NFC?
Seattle.
The Seahawks? That's
I'm going to go with the Seahawks. I'm going to go with the Seahawks, yeah.
I called week 1. I'm going Seahawks Chiefs. As much as it pains me, because I wish it were going to be the Cowboys, but I don't think it's going to be us this year, unfortunately.
You've been saying that a lot.
I think there's a lot of kinks we got to work out first.
You've been saying that a lot. You loyal. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Actually, because you're as you talk about I keep it real. You keep it real too. You know what I mean? But what's it like being a Cowboys fan? No. I'm going back to our conversation earlier.
Yeah.
What's it like being a Cowboys fan as it relates to racial justice, knowing that Jerry Jones, in terms of action and deed, has been on the front line of the opposition or the resistance to this movement in many respects. You got players that were reluctant to protest. I think Terry Poe was the first Cowboy to demonstrate during the national anthem. Like, do you ever feel conflicted? And listen, I say that everybody makes a choice when it comes to, we're rooting for human beings at the end of the day. And so there are players who may have off the field, actions or off the field trouble or what have you. There are teams and owners. Everybody has to, to make a decision. So that's not any different. But specifically on that issue, is it a conflict to be a Cowboys fan?
It is at times, just like it is with the Knicks about the way that Dolan decided to handle this whole situation and not release a statement. I believe he was the only NBA owner, and that was the only NBA team that didn't release anything specific to what was going on, which is frustrating because New York is one of the most culturally diverse cities in this country. So to not have that coming from the New York Knicks was uncomfortable. But I will say regarding the Cowboys, it puts me in a weird position that time because I am so passionate about social and racial injustice in this country. But I also know I have relationships with a few of the guys on the team, through, mutual connections and just working. And I know where their heart is. And I know that although we may not see it displayed on the field, what they're doing behind the scenes. And, the first person that comes to my mind is Dak. And I think, in the past, he has maybe worded things differently than he meant them, and it was perceived one way, especially when he had the comment about being biracial. But he probably has one of the biggest hearts of anybody that I know, and he really is dedicated to making a difference, not just within the city of Dallas, but throughout. And I think it speaks volumes to somebody who has been through so much like he has been through and still able to kind of be a leader. I think, when he came forward about his mental health and faced that backlash, and when he came forward about donating that $1 million pledge to not only fighting racial injustice, but to correcting the Dallas Police Department, which I think a lot of people heard police and they were like, whoa. But here's the thing, the police aren't going anywhere. So in order for us to correct the issue, we have to not only work within our communities, but we have to work along with the people who are supposed to protect us, that we pay to protect us. So I think Dak marches to the beat of his own drum, and I'm glad he's my quarterback. Again, Jerry Jones' stance on things definitely rubs me the wrong way sometimes,
Sure.
But I think from conversations I've had with the guys, he's definitely coming around. You gotta remember, Jerry Jones is like 80 years old. So he's not changing his ways anytime soon, but I think that the new generation of Cowboys are kind of changing their narrative that exists in Dallas. So
I'm proud of Dak too. Did you see that awesome moment with Hayden Hurst?
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
It was great.
You know how many lives tough loss, talk about stuff being bigger than sports. Tough loss, as tough as they come if you're Atlanta, you're heartbroken. But for Hayden Hurst to run up to the opposing quarterback and tell him how much respect he had and say, hey, we have a foundation, and I'm sure Dak meant it when he said it. Hey, let's collab on something.
Yeah, he did.
So God only knows what they do. And literally, I mean, that's not a cliche. God only knows what they do that impacts at least one life, if not more, just based off of that. I mean, a lot of people said it when it happened, but now it's the next, manifestation of that. Like Dak was literally saving lives And the ensuing conversation, and I, just kind of take you behind the curtain. And I know Skip Bayless a little bit. I mean,
that's what I wanted to ask you. I wanted to ask you, as a journalist, I feel that there are lines you don't cross, and I think there are things you don't say. I know in this generation we live in the hot take society. Everyone wants to go viral, and everyone wants to have the clip that it was on loop on CNN and all these different outlets. Yeah. But how did you feel about it? I was obviously, not only as a Cowboys fan, as somebody who calls Dak a friend, but I was offended by somebody who in the past has had issues with their own mental health. I think everyone goes through periods of being depressed or having anxiety or whatever. How did you feel about that? Do you feel there are things that just should not be said?
So yes, yes. Let me go a couple of things there. I've maybe undiagnosed, but I know that I've had periods where I've been really down. Specifically the last couple of years. But how did I feel about it? So just context, like I know Skip Bayless a little bit, obviously worked with him for a long time at ESPN. We got along. And, just one-on-one, nothing bad to say about Skip. But I've never agreed with his approach to sports commentary, generally or specifically on, certain topics. I've always had a policy, though, because there's another journalist who shall not be named, who's kicking up dust and who had a typical column searching for attention. And one of my producers asked me about it today. I was like, let me tell you something. Don't ever bring that individual's name up to me. I would never give him the time of day. I would never give him the attention that he's so crazed. But my general policy is that I've never, just put it this way. Generally, in life, what somebody eat don't make me shit. That's number one. Number two, in this game, in the sports talk industry, I've never felt like I had to respond to what a colleague said, whether they worked at ESPN or not. I never felt like, oh, okay, well, such and such said this, so now we got to talk about it. Fuck that. Like, I don't care. You say some stupid shit. I'm sorry, excuse my language. But you say something like, okay, I don't care. That's not important to me. All I ever cared about was what I had to say, the person next to me, as the case may be, had to say, and people that I respected had to say. That's all I cared about. I was not into justifying or dignifying somebody else's idiotic take with my response. I didn't deserve the time of day. However, I am glad that Skip said what he said. I'm glad he did. And I'm glad he doubled down. And the reason he doubled down is because, his brand has always been to dig in and tell people why they got it wrong and they don't understand. They don't understand what he meant. But just real quick, I'm glad he said it. And the reason I'm glad he said it, and the reason why, if I had been on television then, the show hadn't started then, but if I had been on television and been so inclined, I would have discussed it, actually. That's the point I wanted to make. I would have discussed, because it was an important conversation, because Dak got a lot of appreciation. He got a lot of props, because the civilized among us, the more evolved among us, understand what a real issue, we're just coming out of the NBA bubble, what he was talking about, the mental health and emotional toll from being in the NBA bubble. So I was glad there was still some caveman out there so into himself and so consumed with his own opinion that he would put that kind of ignorant bullshit out there, because it led to an important conversation, because the reaction to that was very important. It was important to react to Dak in a positive way, to uplift Dak, but it was also important for everybody to check Skip. Hey man, that type of shit is dangerous. That type of commentary is dangerous. And I was glad he said it so it could be exposed. Certain things, just like, God, can't we get past that? Because even the conversation that we're having lately, one of my favorite people, one of my former colleagues, Maria Taylor, the shit she's been dealing with lately, it's like, keep exposing yourself. So there's a value to it. There is a value to it. And so with Dak, I was glad that Skip said it. I would have responded to it. I would have talked about it, because what he said is dangerous, and what he said is why people feel so uncomfortable coming forward, especially in professional sports, and why Dak is a hero right now. And he's not my quarterback, but man, my respect for him shot through the roof. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ramble too much.
No, it's fine. And I think also what you said was really important. He exposed himself, but I think the reaction to his exposure is what I found to be really heartwarming, was so many people were so outraged and so offended and defended Dak and defended people who go through mental health issues every single day. And it really showed that we are in an era of our society where certain things are just not going to fly. People are going to call you out, whether it's being misogynistic, whether it's being insensitive, whether it's being racist. And we don't live in a perfect world. No. Do we have a lot of things we need to improve on? Absolutely. But I really love that we live in a culture right now where if you say something that's out of pocket, everyone's letting you know that you're out of pocket. And I love that people came at Skip. Whether or not he doubled down or he apologized, whatever the case may be, I love that he was called out on it, because we need that. We need to call people out when they're not doing or saying what is conducive to an environment or to a culture that needs to be progressive and move forward.
Because he speaks to a lot of people. There's a lot of people that think like Skip.
A lot. Yeah.
A lot of people that think like Skip. And they need to be corrected one at a time. So
I want to ask you, moving to the NBA, Maria Taylor, with the whole voting process in the league, LeBron has a beef with it. He says that a lot of people, media personalities, listen to the narrative versus actually looking at the facts. Do you think that the NBA needs to restrict or tighten the restrictions, rather, of the voting process when it comes to MVP, when it comes to Defensive Player of the Year, etc.?
I don't think so. That's a tough one for me. I don't think so. And the reason I say I don't think so is A, I've never been a voter, but B, did they get it wrong though? I don't think they got it wrong. I get that. Listen, there's a reason why they affix a specific year to the most valuable player. It is not MVP in perpetuity. Nobody is saying that generically. It doesn't get passed from person to person. Like generically, okay, Giannis Antetokounmpo is the most valuable player in the NBA.
Of course.
They're saying for 2019, 2020, pre-pause, he had the best season. And I'm not exactly sure who would argue with somebody who averaged damn near 30, 14, and 6, and was Defensive Player of the Year. LeBron, the king, sits on the throne that is best player in the world. And he's going to sit on that throne until he decides to renounce it.
So is he being a sore loser?
No, it's not that he's a sore loser. It's like, I get it. It's like, it was almost like, it was the, how he was a little upset. A lot of people were upset that Steph was unanimous MVP. He was the first unanimous MVP. Like LeBron, Jordan, nobody's ever been unanimous MVP. So I think LeBron looks at the voting and is like, wait, 85-16? Damn, like I could have, if it was going to be 50-50 or something like that, that's one thing. He was like 85, it's like a landslide, like only 16 of y'all voted for me? So, but I don't know that it was a narrative. I think Giannis was just that brilliant. But again, the conversation every year gets twisted. Every year the conversation is like, well, if you were starting a team, that's not what the award is. If you were starting a team, you start with LeBron. I ain't ask you that. If you had one game away, I ain't ask you that. Who's the best player in the world? That's not what we're talking about. It's like it's a regular season award. And I guarantee you, if Giannis were still playing right now, this conversation wouldn't be going like that. I think what looks bad on the results, same as when Dirk lost in the first round, on and on and on, is like when you go home early in the playoffs, but you're getting an MVP award from home, it invalidates it in some people's minds.
Yeah, people look at it like,
yeah, are you really the MVP? Like, yeah. For 2019, 2020, Giannis Antetokounmpo had the best season. Maybe change the name to eliminate the confusion. But LeBron, they always going to look for something to motivate. Not that he needs it, but yeah, I'm sure he was pissed because it was so overwhelming in Giannis's favor. But if he'd have lost by one vote, he'd have found a reason to be pissed by that too. You know what I mean? So, I don't know that the voting needs an overhaul, because I don't know how many times people have gotten it dead wrong, in terms of the final result. But yeah.
Looking at the two teams who left the bubble a lot earlier than people predicted, the Clippers and the Bucks, what do you think this means for both teams? Is Giannis going to stay in Milwaukee, and is PG-13 to blame for what happened with the Clippers?
Clippers had a lot of issues. I don't know that they would ever right this shit. I'm not making excuses for them. I don't know if they were ever right. What did they have? Like 3 or 4 guys lead a bubble for funerals at different points?
Yeah, it was the bubble was the first time that they had a bunch of the team together and actually play together. A lot of guys say, a lot of people say that there were a bunch of egos on one team and they weren't actually a team. I completely misread them and I had them going all the way. But that's a different conversation.
No, a lot of people did.
PG-13 did not do his job.
You know, a lot of people did. A lot of people. I mean, they would just, you put Paul George and Kawhi Leonard together. You know, that all of us fell for it. All of us fell for it. I think they got tired, and I think they got tired of each other. You know, guys asking out at the end of the games in the fourth quarter, apparently. So much for load management. You know, also, I would just give props to Denver, man. Denver's good. Like, I'd be interested to see what happens tonight. Because that first game, you know, in this series, that first game, foul trouble messed it up. They lost on the last second shot the second game. You know it don't get good till Denver gets behind. Denver's really, really good. Nikola Jokic is that dude. So I think it was really like Denver came to play, and you know, it's easy to say Clippers gonna clip. It's easy to make Clipper jokes are easy and justified. But I think a lot of it just has to do with, like, it's how many examples have we seen throughout professional sports of teams on paper don't have chemistry?
What does this mean, though, for Doc Rivers as a coach? This is the 3rd time he has blown a 3-1 lead. Yeah. What does that say more than necessarily PG-13's performance or the individual guy's performance? What does it say about Doc Rivers?
I think he does have to look. That's indisputable. That's on his resume. That's part of his legacy. Each one of those 3-1 blown leads, Orlando and the Clippers with the Lob City Clippers and this team, different set of circumstances, but nonetheless, only coached to blow 3-1 leads. To blow 3-1 leads. Speaks for itself. I don't think it's necessarily an indictment of Doc, though. I think Doc is still an excellent coach, excellent communicator. He just could not push this team's buttons. And is that a reflection on Doc, or is that a I mean, because Doc's also this close to having 2 titles. You know, we talk about the one he got with Boston. I mean, you know, Kobe and Powell took the other one in 7. You know, when there was some injuries on the Boston side that were debilitating. So, you know, I don't think it's an indictment of Doc. I think everybody got some soul searching. It might just be the wrong mix. And also, when you got a guy, you know, like Paul George, you know, as talented a tandem as they are, is Kawhi the guy to bring the best out of Paul George? Because Kawhi's got his own style or lack thereof when it comes to leadership. You know, somebody said this the other day. I mean, Kawhi never had to really worry about leading as much as he just had to play and just be the best player. Mm-hmm. You know, Paul George is, you know, is he that dude? I don't know if he can be. I mean, apparently people rolling their eyes at him. You know, when he talking about, you know, let's get better for next year.
That locker room was not a fan of what he had to say at all, allegedly.
Yeah.
was not a fan of what he was spitting in that locker room.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, there's only so much Doc can do from the bench, you know, at a certain point. So, yeah, I think it's props to Denver, but yeah, they got some flaws. But I could also see this team, you know, if they made it the right stuff, I could see them coming back next year.
Oh, absolutely.
And building on it. Lots of teams have a setback, and it's just a matter of how you want to respond to it. Could this be, and, you know, I'm not comparing any of the individuals, but could this be to the Clippers what 2010, 2011 was to the Heat? You know, because everybody said LeBron ain't got it. What was it, 6 points in the fourth quarter, whatever it was? Mm-hmm. I've forgotten it. It was so, but at the time, that was the,
I believe it was 6, yes.
Again, narrative about LeBron James was that, you know, he choked in big moments. Obviously, nobody was saying about Kawhi Leonard, and I'm certainly not comparing Paul George to LeBron James, simply saying that he can come back next year more focused, more motivated, more together, forged by fire, if you will, and maybe get over the hump. But I'm not going to count on it because I'd be silly to trust the Clippers. Had to get one last joke in there.
1, 2, 3, Cancun. Moving from one important conversation to another, voting, this year's election. Now, Odell had a very honest conversation with Mav Carter where he admitted that he's never voted before, but after the CBA, you know, situation where he actually voted and the vote didn't go his way, and he realized 350 guys plus maybe did not vote, he realized the importance of voting. I want to ask you what message you want to convey when it comes to voting in this year's election.
My goodness. Message that I want to convey is that there really is no excuse. I know we're in a pandemic, and I know Republicans are doing everything they can. Traditionally, they've done everything they can to suppress our vote. They're trying to make it difficult, but we got to fight through it. There are no excuses because there is no alternative. We cannot endure, this country, this democracy. We cannot endure another 4 years because I will give Donald Trump credit for one thing, and that is he knows how to fuck a lot of shit up in a short period of time. He has done more in 4 years than most people do in 2 terms. I mean, and now because, Mitt Romney, I guess it was predictable. I guess I shouldn't have expected anything different. I was holding out hope, but now he's going to be the first to stack 3 judges, to put 3 judges on the Supreme Court since Ronald Reagan, I believe it is. So he will have done his job. He will have done effectively what he was put in office to do, which is stack the high courts in favor of conservatives. That, Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death and that appointment, if they push this through in 38 days, whatever it is going to reverberate for generations.
Yeah.
This pandemic, we don't even know the toll this pandemic is going to take on us. And it's going to have a generational effect. And we have to realize that if he's in office for another 4 years, if they're in power for another 4 years, I don't know how we will recover.
What do you say to the people who are in the same situation as Odell? They've never voted before. They don't believe in the process. They believe that their vote doesn't matter. What would you say to them to change their mind and to get registered and then ultimately to get to the polls?
As many have said, I cannot take credit for this line. If your vote didn't matter, why did they jump through hoops trying to take it from you? They do everything possible to suppress the vote. So absolutely your vote matters. And the thing I like about people like LeBron, I watched our girl Taylor Rooks, who's joining the show tomorrow, I believe, fingers crossed. I watched Chris Paul, Taylor Rooks, and Don Lemon had a live chat on CNN earlier. The thing I love about athletes getting involved in the democratic process is think about how much athletes shape how young people behave, how young people dress. Yeah, how young people dress, how they dream, what's important to them. They are role models. And I'm so encouraged and proud of people, like the LeBrons of the world and all of these people who are getting, not just using their platforms, but actually,
doing the work.
They're being activists, but they're also activating people in this process, because what's going to happen is, you were talking about stuff that's going to have a generational impact. They're sowing seeds going to last for generations, because there are some young people out there who are going to be interested in being educated in politics and in the democratic process that otherwise would not be. They're making it cool to get involved in politics, because I know even for me growing up, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that shit was kind of normal. You know what I mean? Like,
it wasn't nearly as bad as it is right now.
I've only recently, I was always socially aware and generally aware, but I've only recently become obsessed with the news. I mean, my career was always in sports. I was never a news reporter, unfortunately, but just in adulthood, did I really get into politics and news and what have you. So I'm excited. I'm excited for the youth. I'm excited for the youth who are on the front lines of this movement, who are really driving and working in the streets, boots on the ground, working for social change, working for racial justice. But I'm super, super excited for the young people who it's going to be normal for them to be civically involved. And that's what I really commend You know, it's not just about the now, but it's about generations and generations of kids going to feel like, oh yeah, man, how'd you first get into politics? Well, I was watching LeBron James. You know, it's like, oh, okay, you know.
I agree. I love it. I mean, for me, I first got involved with activism after Trayvon Martin was killed. I actually marched with his father down here in Miami, and it sparked something in me that just kept burning, has been burning ever since. And I remember when I was marching for George Floyd right here in Miami, the amount of young people out there was just so inspiring, because I think when I was their age in high school, this wasn't something that we had to worry about. We were worried about like MySpace and Facebook, and it wasn't a thing. And to see how they are just taking, you know, the helms and using their platforms, and, you know, using TikTok and using all these things that didn't exist when I was their age, and out there and actually being heard and being seen. It's just really empowering. And I think that the future's in good hands.
What did you think? I'm sorry. What did you think? What did you feel? What did you feel when and I'm not sure how you feel about her particularly. I know which way you lean politically, but what did you feel about Kamala Harris's nomination? What did that moment feel like for you?
It was, listen, her not only being a Black woman, but a woman in general, we're just one step closer to being in the Oval Office as our own. And I remember when I voted for Clinton, although there were a lot of people who weren't sold on her, it was still something that was better than the alternative. And that's how I've always viewed things. For me, it's not necessarily about, do I want to go to dinner with them? It's the lesser of two evils. And in that case, it was Hillary Clinton. But still, there was something that I felt a pride towards voting for the first woman presidential nominee. And I was genuinely disappointed when she did not win, because in my heart, I thought that, you know, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, yes, people may not really like her, but it's got to be better than Donald. And when it didn't go that way, there you go,
using common sense.
Yeah. When it didn't go that way, it was heartbreaking. But, you know, Kamala Harris, what she represents is there's a little Black girl or a little mixed girl or a little Asian girl who is not white with blonde hair, who's looking at this election and hopefully the eventual presidential winners and saying, I can do that. And it's more than just a vision. It's more than just a dream. It's a reality. We're watching it. We're in the midst of history, and what that means for a generation of young women, young minority women, is huge.
I want to piggyback off that though, and just say, you know, I think it's as, if not more important for young men. Because if there's a girl out there, you know, a Black or brown girl out there saying, I can do that, then the alternative is that I can't do that. Well, why can't she do that? Or why traditionally can't she do that? It's not because she inherently cannot. It's that society, a male-dominated society, specifically a white male-dominated society, has historically prevented her from doing it. The person that I want to make sure I grabbed to see Kamala Harris accept the nomination was my son, because it's like and little boys out there need to see how normal and how not only progressive but productive it is for us. We in the better women in charge thing. Shit goes right when women are in charge.
That's right.
I want my son to see, and other little boys to see that and say, okay, that's the norm. That's how it should be. I think it's more important for boys to get the message than it is for girls, because girls know what they can do. Women know what they can do. It ain't a question of whether they can or can't. It's whether we'll get the fuck out the way, you know, and respect them. Yeah, and respect women as equals, if not superiors in many respects. And so, for me, I enjoyed it for men. I enjoyed it. It was a powerful moment for me. But I just hope guys, young men, process that and saw, like, okay, you know, there's a powerful woman, a strong, intelligent, educated woman of conviction and principle, qualified woman, you know, who's running things.
Yeah.
And that's good. That's okay. There's nothing to be threatened about.
And that's a great point. And I think that's a lesson that all young men and even grown men can learn, is that a woman of power doesn't make her any less of a woman. It doesn't make her any less sensual or sensitive or submissive. Women are so multidimensional, and they can be so many different things, and they can wear so many different hats. And it is the responsibility of men to uplift those women, to make them feel wanted, to make them feel supported. And I'm glad that we're seeing what a young girl with those characteristics and and that support can grow up to be. And I hope that both young men and women, whether you're a father, whether you're expecting, whether you're a mother, whether you're expecting, I hope that that is a lesson that we can instill in our kids moving forward. I don't have any kids, but when I do, best believe my daughter's going to be a little diva. She's going to be running things. Like, I believe that strong women are the future. And I think it takes a society of strong men and men who are secure in their manhood to uplift a powerful woman. So I'm glad that, you know, that resonated with you as a father, and you were able to pass that message along to your son. So I gotta move in closing. I want to talk about your new show, because you have a new show, Brother from Another. I want to ask you, what is different and what is similar about this Michael Smith, this era of Michael Smith, that people love about you, and what is the same?
I think I care less. And I think I've never censored myself. I think the people that have worked with me know how tightly I grip the wheel. You know what I mean? I know they know how particular I was, and how driven and how intense I was. And a lot of the intensity was rooted in, I don't want to call it insecurity, but I was never satisfied. So, you know, I would say the apex of my career, from an enjoyment and a fulfillment standpoint, was 2014 to 2017. Those 3 years of his and hers. But the people who were close to me knew that as much fun as I was having, I was never satisfied. You know, I was never
you felt something was missing.
Well, it was because it was like, you know, we were on ESPN2. We were, you know, we were in a small studio. We weren't getting the love, the recognition that I thought we deserved, or that's how I define success, as opposed to appreciating what I had, as opposed to appreciating that I was working with one of my best friends. We were creating unique content. We were enjoying ourselves. We were talking about the stuff we wanted to talk about. And then, talking about grass not being green on the other side, get paid a lot of money, get a big studio, big staff, commercials, all the shit you think you want. And I got it, and it was the most miserable experience of my professional career. And now I'm older, I'm stronger, and I'm wiser. I mean, you know, I've been through so much until I'm just like enjoying. I'm just enjoying the moment. I'm enjoying just kind of showing up, talking to another one of my best friends, and not worried about proving anything, or not worried about external validation. You know, I think there was a time when I felt like I was looking for somebody else to validate or to, you know, confirm my success. Now I'm just like, yo, I'm just at a better place creatively than I've ever been.
I love that.
I mean, I started my own company, and I'm telling the stories that I want to tell. Honestly, I'm spending my day doing the things I want to do and talking to the people I want to talk to, and that's that's the independence that I've always wanted. And so I guess I'm just at a more mature place and just kind of appreciating, you know, just the opportunity. I was always focused on what's next, and so the simple answer is I was always focused on what's next, and now I'm really into what's now. You know,
I love that.
Yeah.
So before I let you go, 60 seconds, let people know where they can find the show, when it's on, what they can expect. The floor is yours.
The name of the show is Brother from Another. It's with my brother, my mentor, my friend, Michael Holly. We are 3 to 5 Eastern on Peacock. We're streaming on Peacock. That's the new streaming service from NBC Universal. It is now available on Roku.
I have Roku and I have it.
I'm a Roku person too, and they just did that deal. I'm like, yo, I can't watch it on house.
You guys see my Roku remote?
There you go. Oh, that's a fancy. That's like a Roku Ultra.
This is the new one.
Damn, I got to upgrade.
That's my dad.
I got to upgrade that. But no, we 3 to 5 every day. That's the crazy thing is like I went from chilling to every day again. Daily TV is no joke. It is a grind. Mm-hmm. It is a grind, and I'm back at it. I jumped that back into it with both feet, and you know we coming along. We getting it together. But I'm just like I said, I'm not. There'd be times when I'd be obsessing over literally every detail, and losing sleep over it. And I'm not. You know what I mean? It's like it's so funny. Like there's nothing. You ever seen The Dark Knight?
Of course.
Yeah, I know. What kind of question is that?
I only live under a rock. I've never. Yeah. What's that? Who's Batman?
So you know the scene when the Joker has kidnapped Harvey Dent and Rachel Dawes, and he's in the what's the word I'm looking for? The what you call it? Interrogation room. He's in the interrogation room, and Batman goes in. And he starts, doing his Batman thing. He's like, okay, I got to whip his ass. I'm going to beat it out of you because that's what Batman does. And he just starts laughing. He's like, you have nothing to threaten me with. It's like, that's kind of how I feel right now. It's like, I think the purpose in my pain and some of the stuff that I've experienced, it just put me in this space of like, what can you do that I haven't already experienced? What can you take from me that hasn't already been taken? What can you say about me that hasn't already been said?
It's like the scene in 300 where he walks and he's like, "Are you now entertained?"
Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. It's like I define what success is for me now, as opposed to thinking that the definition had to be based off of my own show or money or what time my show was on, what network my show was on, how much. It's like I wasn't even gonna do this again. The only reason I'm doing it is because oh, that's right,
was it Gladiator? I know
it was Gladiator.
It was Gladiator. My bad. Sorry guys, sorry.
Oh, that hurt.
Sorry.
But that's okay. That's okay.
To replay it, I'm like, that wasn't in 300, was it?
but just so you know, it goes Troy, 300, Gladiator. That's the order. That's the order. But no, it's such a freeing feeling to do it for, because I wondered whether when I was out of it. And I've said this before, the more I was away from it, the less I missed it. I wondered, well, did I really love it?
Yeah.
Or did I just love being successful at it? Did I really love it? Because I was like, oh, did I just, because I had achieved success. So I'm only back at it because, of like I said, a person that I'm working with, and it's the right set of circumstances. And we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm not. There's no pressure. I'm not applying any. There's no internal pressure, no external pressure. I'm telling you, it was just. It stopped being fun for me. Sports stopped being fun for me. But I'm in a good place now. You didn't ask me all of that. You
I
do not
love
have
it
to have
though.
it.
No, I love that.
You just have an ability to just get people. You don't have to ask questions. You're such a good interviewer. You ain't even got to ask. You just got to be like,
no, I
talk,
love that
you know?
though, because I think that's an important lesson for people to learn, regardless of what field you're in, is that sometimes you have to step away from something to realize whether or not you truly love it, because it's the aspect of the absence. You know, absence makes the heart grow fonder, and if your heart doesn't grow fonder, then it's time to kind of, you know, readjust and figure out what's next. And I think you kind of found merging what you were once passionate about with an avenue that you're more comfortable in. And I think that people who watch the show are going to see that. And, you know, when you're comfortable, when you're confident and you're at peace with yourself and your situation and where you are in life, it radiates. You know, you can tell when someone has weight on them. You can tell when it's heavy. You can tell when someone's just there because they have to be, not because they want to be. You know, energy is contagious. And I think that when people watch the show, they see that your energy is different. Well, and I think that's going to make a difference.
And that's always been if I have a superpower, it's my energy, it's my passion. I'm not a walking encyclopedia. I'm not the most well-spoken. I don't consider myself to be the smartest or this, that, and the other. I consider myself to have two things going for me. It's my work ethic. There's three things: work ethic / commitment, and my energy. And what's funny is, you know, toward the end of my time on air at ESPN, the people that know me and that watch me, they could tell. They were like, yo, you know, you don't seem happy, because it's like my energy is so high until when it's not up there, it's noticeable. Like I can't get by with just going through the motions. I'm not that kind of guy. You know, like I'm always on 10. And so it was definitely noticeable that I wasn't into what I was doing. And that's what I mean. Like my joy for it I was robbed of my joy for it. Or I'm not going to use a passive voice. I'm not going to say I was robbed. I'll let somebody steal my joy.
But that's a great point that you said, your work ethic. You know, my parents have a saying that they always tell me. They didn't make it up, but they say hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And it's one thing to be talented, but it's another thing to be a hard worker. And sometimes you can create a talent just from hard work alone, but if you have talent and you're a hard worker, then it's almost impossible to compete with that. And I think that, you know, you stepping away and really just kind of readjusting and refocusing and pivoting and figuring out a new blueprint just speaks to that work ethic. Because a lot of people would have just been like, you know what, screw it. Like, you know, ESPN was here. Now I'm like starting from scratch again. What am I going to do? And you figured it out.
Well, I appreciate that. But I mean, I want to correct one thing, though. It's like, it wasn't strategy. It wasn't strategy. It was faith, and I wish I could say it was faith that was never shaken, but I'd be lying to you. It wasn't strategy like, oh, okay, I'm going to step away. Like, I was pushed into my purpose more than I walked into it.
Happens like that sometimes.
And honestly, it's like, you know, they say God he closes the door, it opens the window, you know, but it's like sometimes he pushes you out there, sucker. Yeah. And I was just like, you know, I think there would have been a great chance of me being complacent, of me being comfortable. I mean, look at the platform, look at the money, you know, look at the notoriety that comes with the position that I had. And so I often ask myself, damn, why? And then now that I'm here, I'm like, oh, of course. Like, oh, okay. Because it's like, now I'm doing the things that I always wanted to do. Like I said, I'm more creative now. And I've been building in the dark too. That's what's been so fun. It's like my whole career has been on camera. It's like I'm building in the dark, and it's more rewarding than being on national television, the stuff that I'm doing right now. And it's not even about whether or not it sees the light of day, whether or not each project is successful. It is literally about the process and the fact that I get up now again. And it's not for the first time in my life. Because for the most part, my previous life was a good one. But I'm getting up now again and feeling good about what I'm going to do, and knowing that, you know, my former partner at the last startup I was a part of, you know, he said, yo, you don't work for nobody anymore. It was like, decide what you want your day to look like. Decide what you want your week to look like. And I took that to heart, and I still do. And every day for me, I'm doing what it is I want to do.
And I think that's a great point, you know, being pushed into your purpose. And not to get all spiritual on people, but I heard a sermon.
I'm a preacher's grandson.
I heard a sermon from my preacher about 2 weeks ago, and he was talking about this very thing. And he said that sometimes God gives you windows and opportunities to leave on your own. You know, he gives you opportunities to kind of, you know, make the decision to leave on your own. But when he sees that it's roadblocking your purpose, the purpose that, you know, is intended for you, the destination that's intended for you, sometimes he gives you that push because you're not moving the way you should be moving. And we look at it at the moment as a setback. We look at it as a pitfall. We look at it like, why is this happening to me? And then there comes a moment where you're sitting down or you're doing what you love and it all makes sense, and you realize that every single pit, every single fall, every obstacle was necessary to get you to this very spot. And it's not necessarily about the destination, it's not about how long it takes, it's about the ultimate goal, and the ultimate goal is the ending, getting to the top of that mountain. And
not just to get there,
how are you finishing it?
Not just to get you there, but to shape you for it.
Exactly.
Because like, you know, you asked me like, what's different about this version of me than say, you know, 3 years ago? It's like, you know, I'm battle tested. I'm hardened. You know, it's like, and also I just know what it is that I want, and I know what I'm not gonna put up with. Like I you know, I've made so many decisions lately, bold decisions, if I may say, that I would not have made before. But again, because of what I've been through, because of what I've learned, it's like I just have. You know, somebody told me this, like every experience is a good one. Absolutely. Good or bad, because it's all just educational and informational. And I've just learned so much even from situations that I'm like, damn, you know, how did I get into this again? And it's like, I'm you know, because like 1 minute I'm down in the dumps, and then there's like, oh, okay, this is gonna be like this is my last 3 years in a nutshell is like top of the world, down in the dumps, you know, coming back, feeling good, like, oops, nope, go back, you know, reverse course. Uh-oh, this is something. Oh, nope, not that. It's like, I told you, I'm on, you know, I could be here all night just telling you just about the last 3 months. Just about the last 3 months. You know, and
I think that's so vulnerable and honest. And I think that a lot of times up and coming journalists, people in different artistic fields see that, you know, these TV personalities, and they see, well, if you get one job, you'll get another one easily. And that's not always the case. It's not always like that, especially if you're more outspoken and you play by your own set of rules and the rules that are set for you. And I want everybody to kind of take from this conversation, this aspect of it at least. You know, there's a saying in the church world, there's no testimony without a couple of tests along the way, and everybody's tests are different and everybody's, you know, path is different, but the journey is necessary and the obstacles are necessary. And that's not to say that you're going to be pleased with them. You can sometimes you sit there and you're like, God, why are you doing this to me? Like how much more am I supposed to take? You know what I mean? But then it makes sense one day.
I went to some dark places, actually. I went to some real dark places, and it was hard because then I feel guilty about it. You know, so I know better. I know guys got me. And like, am I overreacting? You know, am I just in my own head? You know, so it was a, you know, we talked earlier about just mental health, and I never saw anybody about it. I know I should have, and I know y'all should in general. You shouldn't just maintain your mental health when you think things are down. It's like that's necessary to, you know, do all the time, up, down, whatever. So I'm a procrastinator, and I'm gonna work on that tomorrow. But no, but it was just like I definitely, you know, had some internal struggles, and it's just like you said, when you're on the other side of it, you're like, of course, like, why did I ever doubt? Like, why did I doubt? Why did I get nervous? Because now I'm looking back on that little sabbatical I had, and I'm like, shit, I should have enjoyed that a little bit more.
Yeah, right. You know? I should have enjoyed the moments where I wasn't working like that, because now it's a whole different level of work.
Yeah.
But I love that, and I love the honesty of that, and I've loved this conversation. We definitely have to do it again. Before I let you go, without looking at the score, because I know the game's on right now, who's taking it?
I'm completely focused on this conversation. My TV is not on.
Okay, perfect.
TV is not on. It's just, I've been just. I don't even know what the score is.
Give me your pick then. You have no bearing on what's going on right now. Western Conference Finals. Who's taking the dub tonight?
The Lakers will take it.
Wow.
The Lakers will take it, and it's gonna get to be 3-1. And then the Nuggets will win 2 in a row at 3-0. They'll win 2 in a row to make it interesting, and then the Lakers will win it in 6.
I like this prediction. If it comes back,
the Nuggets gotta wait till it gets, they backs get against the wall or what have you.
If that becomes true, you should like moonlight as like a psychic, like Miss Cleo back in the days, because that was a pretty specific prediction.
Nobody delivers worse predictions than me. If it was about my accuracy when it comes to predictions, I would not be here right now. I would not be here.
Let me get your Celtics Heat prediction. Who's taking?
I thought you were a Heat fan. I forgot you were a Knicks person.
So I'm a Knicks fan, but I live in Miami.
You live in Miami,
represent,
yeah.
And
I got the Heat in that one. I got Heat in 6 in that one. So I got Lakers Heat in Orlando. Yeah.
That was mine. I had Heat in 6 too. So we'll see. But the Celtics aren't making it easy, that's for sure. But I'm hoping. The only thing that sucks though, if say the Heat win the finals, there's no championship parade. Like there's nothing going on this game. This is no parade.
I don't know. You know how y'all do in Florida? Y'all don't.
Oh, they don't care.
Y'all don't care about no pandemic. So y'all will party regardless.
Yeah, they're going out. Listen, the Heat win the finals, they're flooding this game, coronavirus or not.
That's what I told you, man. America, we ain't trying to get well. We are not trying to get well.
Listen, hit me with that fine because we doing it.
Yeah. No question.
Hate it. But I love this conversation.
Yeah, this was fun.
So much.
Long overdue. I'm sorry. I remember I told you. I'm sorry it took so long because remember we had touched base about it, but I had to get my ducks in a row. I had to get my house in order first.
Somebody said a boat parade. I love that. That's a good idea. Yeah. Let everybody know where they can find you. Again, plug the show one more time for people who just popped in real quick.
Yeah, I'm obviously at the Michael Smith on here. I'm not on here that much unless Ashley brings me out. New show. We in week 2. Tomorrow is show 8. Feels like it's been 8 years because it's been so. I ain't got my legs back yet. I'm still getting into my routine. But yeah, show's called Brother from Another. It's me and my man Michael Holly. Weekdays 3 to 5 Eastern. God help me, 3 to 5 Eastern on Peacock. It's the most. I talked about the unique content that we're creating on His and Hers. This is different. We don't have a script. Ashley, we ain't got a script. We ain't got a rundown. We just talking. We just 2 dudes talking.
Listen, I do radio, so I know. Ain't no script. Just wing it and hope for the best.
We got no breaks, nothing. Like it's TV without us. It's basically radio on TV. That's exactly. You know what? You're right. That's exactly what it is. It's radio on TV. It's radio on TV. So yeah, you got to come through sometime.
I definitely would love to. I'll definitely return the favor. Thank you so much for this conversation.
And thanks to everybody that fell through. I appreciate everybody that